He's always listening. He's like the government. Eagle Eye. You don't watch that movie with Severus Snape? Whatever. Alan Rickman.
You know, one time I like reread the Harry Potter series and I I was like reading the scene where Snape dies and I was like crying and then I like went to bed and the next morning was when Alan Rickman died.
Oh my god.
And I was like,
it's my fault. Did you read a lot of Harry Potter growing up or
no,
just
not
to
at
read
all.
it?
Actually, my brother really liked it. Like my brother was the Harry Potter person where he would reread like quite often. And I was just like, whatever. And I read the series for the first time in like high school, like late high school.
Was there any series that you did read growing up?
I was really into Hunger Games. I went to the midnight premiere.
Oh, the first one?
Yes. And it was like with a bunch of my English class like friends. And I remember my mom being like, why are you going to the movies at midnight? And I was like, please, mom, like it's fine.
don't
I'll be
understand.
fine. Yeah, like I'll be fine. I'm with like a whole bunch of other people. Like even some of their parents are gonna be there because like they were also interested in that. And like, I don't know, you know, and I just remember my mom being like, no.
Was it
And I
everything
was
you could
like,
have imagined
no.
and more?
Yeah, I had a good time. But I was kind of disappointed because I'm always disappointed when because movies tend to be not as like
Right.
detailed as books.
It's also never as great as your imagination can make it, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Your imagination has the best special effects.
Yes.
Until we get to that point. I wonder when that'll be. When in like 40 years, like, wow, I couldn't even imagine that happening. Like, that's better than my imagination.
Yeah.
Hwejean, I want to ask if you had any particular hot take that you hold dear.
I think it has something to do with rewatching. If it was like, hey, you have to watch this movie like every day for the rest of your life or something, I think I'd be able to do it.
I'm sure you noticed things that you didn't notice the previous times you watched them, but do you think that it contributes to why you like to watch them, or is that just interesting part of it?
I think part of that contributes to it, but I think the biggest factor is like rewatching it or rereading or rewatching things at different points of time in my life. So like
interesting.
When I watched something when I was in high school versus now, or like, you know, it's like I always view it differently.
A lot of those older movies that are a little deeper than we would expect, and they tend to have darker, deeper themes that we don't notice. And we're like, huh, that's I was too dumb as a kid to realize that, but now I'm an adult and a little less dumb.
Or like the adult jokes that you miss, and you're like, oh, what?
So what goes through your head when you're rewatching those movies? Are you like invested, like interested in it, or is it you're just kind of mindlessly watching it?
Obviously, parts of it, I'd just be mindlessly watching it. I guess it just makes it feel like a part of a routine I have.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, my thought goes to when I was in 5th grade, I spent the night at my friend's house like every weekend. And we always watched Mulan. It was like we would watch Mulan every time. I don't know how both of us were okay with that, but every time we watched Mulan and then we would watch a different movie, like that movie of the night.
It was like the trailer for the
real
movie.
Like so weird. And even times where we're like, okay, let's just watch a different movie first, and then if we're tired, we can go to sleep. We always still watched Mulan.
But you don't have any particular fondness for Mulan? Or...
Well, it is one of my favorite Disney movies.
Okay.
And I can still like rewatch it now.
I'm sure you could quote it at this point.
Yes.
Just the entire movie.
Yep. But it was weird. Like thinking back, I'm like, that was so weird. Like, how did we do that?
Was this when you were a lot younger, or was it?
No, this was in 5th grade.
5th grade?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty young. I know like younger kids, they could just watch the same thing all the time. And the parents are like, oh my gosh, how do you guys do this?
Like, turn it off.
Please, anything else.
Yeah.
I heard from a friend that you were part of the, I can't pronounce this, but the Bhangra dance team?
Yeah, you pronounced it correctly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you think you could tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, actually, I just went to a competition in Kentucky this past
competition?
weekend. Yes.
Wow, you're still into it. Okay, I thought it was a college show. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I started it freshman year of college, did it all 4 years. Never imagined I would do it after graduation, but here I am. I just went to a competition in Louisville.
Did you fly there or did you drive there?
I drove with a friend.
Say 8 hours, right?
Yeah, I drove with a friend, but other like my teammates, I think I was the only one that drove. All of the rest of my teammates flew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Wait, that's kind of lonely then, yeah?
Oh, it's because I was with a friend who
Okay, yeah.
came with me,
Gotcha.
and he's like unfamiliar with like Bhangra, and it was like his first time, and I just So I just thought I'd keep him company because he had to drive. Yeah,
right.
yeah. And so it's just this traditional Indian dance. It's like I don't know, when people think Indian dance, they think of either Bollywood or like belly dancing or something. But it originates from North India, from Punjab, and it's very like high energy, high cardio, like very good exercise. And I just got into it very randomly. I just never heard of it before. There's like a longer story. I don't know. Do you want the long version or the short version?
I was about to ask you how you got into it because it's not something I know anyone who participates in. So
yeah. So during college, my freshman hallmate was like, oh, like someone should audition for the Bhangra team with me. And I mean, I didn't think of anything of it. I just kind of ignored it. And I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, and then she kept saying it. And I just kept like, I was just like, whatever. And then I went to so in college, I was in Agape Christian Fellowship, ACF. And when we went there, it was like a time of small talk because I'm a freshman. I'm still getting to know everyone. And we were talking about hobbies. And like, I was like, oh yeah, I like to like sing and dance and like do sports and just like, be involved in these things. And this girl was like, you should join the Bhangra team. And I was like, what is that? Like, why do I keep...
tell me what this is.
Like, why does it keep following me? And she's like, yeah, it's like a dance team. And I was like, what Bhangra is now, like, that's not what I was imagining when she said dance team, because my primary interest is like urban dance or like hip hop or stuff like that. Right. So then I like waited for my freshman hallmate to ask again. And she's like, yeah, like, please, like someone should go with me. It's like tomorrow. And I was like, I'll go with you. And so we both went. I wasn't planning on like auditioning. I was just planning on like learning the choreo. Yeah. And just like being there with her so she's not lonely. And then I did audition and then I made it. And then I was like, oh, well, okay, like I'll just do it.
You made it the first, wait, so sorry, you learned it and then auditioned the same day, or is it a different day?
I think we had, if I'm remembering correctly, I think we like learned the choreo and then like 2 days later we auditioned or something like that. It was really weird, or not weird. I just felt a little bad, I guess, because like my freshman hallmate girl that went with me, she didn't make it.
Oh my gosh. That's the plot twist right there.
So then I was like, oh, oops. Like,
oh man, I bet she kind of wished she didn't invite you then.
I don't know, but and I stuck with it like all 4 years. She didn't re-audition the next year, which I think she should have / could have, but yeah, I just I felt very like,
awkward about it. Yeah. So are you a dancer beside just the Bhangra, or is...
Well, in college, I was involved with just like 2 other groups, like just briefly. 2 other groups. No, like very, very briefly. Because like one group, they needed a dancer to fill in. So I only went with them to like one showcase. Like I wasn't really like officially part of that team. And then another group, I was a part of the team for my senior year, but I only did it for like 1 semester. So it wasn't like a big part of my college life. Like it was just like, senior year, why not? I'll try out and let's just do it. And I kind of wish I'd tried out earlier, but it's okay. It was fine. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
So what keeps you sticking with Bhangra then?
I have no idea. Really? I really don't know. Like initially.
But you enjoy it though, right?
Yeah. Okay, cool. I have a lot of fun. I think after graduation, I was reminiscing and I was just like, I miss my friends and like I miss competition vibes and I miss like being on stage, like having fun, like dancing with my friends, like having people in the crowd who like enjoy this culture and this dance, like, you know, that energy, I guess. I was like reminiscing, and then coincidentally my friend posted on her story like, hey, the team that she's on, it's called DCBC. We're having auditions, like we're having tryouts. And I was like, yo, like, should I try out? And she's like, yes, like come like join us again, like dance with me again. And I was like, okay. And then I tried out, made DCBC. So I was part of that since like I think last April. So it's been about like a year, over a year. And then this past competition in Kentucky, my like two of my very good friends from college, like the three of us did Bhangra together, and we were able to perform together.
Oh, that's nice.
Last weekend, and it was amazing because one of them, she's in California for grad school.
Wow.
I was in Korea for a short time. My other friend was in DC, and now like that weekend we were all together on stage again. So it was very like, I don't know. I had a great time.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Did you guys place at the competition?
Unfortunately, we didn't. Actually, we tied for third. And then I think the judges placed us fourth, you know, for whatever reason.
Right.
Like I kind of forget the details right now. But also something that happened that was like frustrating for our team was our lighting cues got messed up.
Oh.
So for an entire like segment, it was like just strobe, like flashing.
Yeah.
And so like I remember going back and rewatching the video, and I was like, oh my gosh, like even on stage, it was kind of distracting because it was just like constant like flashing. And so our team was very frustrated about that. And our friends in the crowd, they were like, yeah, we were like, when is this going to stop? And it just like didn't stop for like a minute. And so, yeah.
Oh, sounds like a great time. Do you have any more competitions coming up?
I think competition season just ended. Okay, so this is like the last one for now. They should start up like a few here and there in the fall, but like spring is like the most, it's like the heavier competition.
And
season.
What's the frequency of you guys practicing? Is that a weekly thing or?
In season, it's pretty often, like 3 times a week or so.
3 times a week? Yeah. Dang. And how long's the season? Like a couple months?
I would say like we were really busy starting after the holidays, like after New Year's, like sometime in January all the way to now. There were like a few competitions we went to. I didn't go to every single one because that was when Omicron was rising again, and I just didn't feel comfortable like traveling and being in a place with a lot of people. So I didn't do the other comps, but yeah, so once it gets heavy, it's like, or like the normal like competition practice schedule is like 3 times a week. But then starting as it gets closer, it gets to be a lot like all weekend practices or like practicing almost like every day kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, little known fact, Hwejean and I went to the same college, but we didn't overlap, or did we overlap?
We did overlap
by
for
a year?
1 year.
Okay, so I graduated 2016, you graduated 2019.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep, I was a freshman when you were a senior.
Yeah, and I didn't leave my dorm room, so we never met. But yeah, I mean, did you enjoy your time in college, or?
I did.
And you're still in school now, right? But you're studying to become a licensed counselor, right?
Yeah. So I am in grad school, getting my master's in counseling to be a mental health therapist. And if everything goes well, I graduate in December. So
wow. And you started last year or 2 years ago?
I started like fall of 2020.
Okay. So 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And why did you choose to pursue becoming a licensed counselor?
Ooh, this is also a long-winded, like, do you want the short version or the long version kind of question?
Version. Let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. So, I was someone who never like knew what I wanted to do, or scratch that. Like, you know, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a teacher. So like, they asked me like what I want to be, and I would say teacher in like a genuine way. It wasn't like oh, girls usually choose to be teachers and guys usually choose to be like, I don't know, like firefighters or something like, I don't know. Yeah. So it wasn't like that stereotypical, like, I want to be a teacher. It was like, I really genuinely wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me even through high school. But having a mother who loves and cares for me, who hoped that I would, it's like the classic stereotypical, like, oh, you should be a doctor and like you
Yeah,
should be a
yeah.
this or that. And like, she's saying it to because she wants the best for me. But yeah, I was very like, oh, I don't know, and like I remember at some point in my life, I was just like, yeah, like I want to be an anesthesiologist
Very specific.
just to like, I don't know, like get my mom off my back kind of thing. But yeah, like just to say something, I guess. But then in high school, this was a big like prayer topic of mine. Like I would always be like, God, like what is it that you want me to do? Like what should I do? Kind of thing. And in high school, I went to a sleepover with a friend. And I wasn't even like particularly like super, super close with her, but she actually like disclosed to me about like what she was going through. And it was very like, all mental health related. Like, yeah, just like self-harm, like eating disorders, a lot of depression, like anxiety, like, those kind of thoughts that I never imagined that like she would be going through and things like that. And I felt very I don't know, for someone to share something like that with me, I felt very
Compelled to action or
compelled to action, yes, for sure. And even a bit like grateful and even a bit like it was just more like thank you for showing me that part of your life. Um and because like I'm someone that's not that good at vulnerability. And so just like hearing that, I was just like, whoa. And I just felt this like, I don't know, I would describe it as that is one of my God moments in my life of like, I just really felt like I had an answer. Like God was like giving me an answer of like, hey, like this is an option. Like this is an answer I'm like showing you. Like, um, and so yeah, I felt that. And that was like the first time I thought, like, I think I want to do something related to mental health. But even then, even until college, like I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. Like I constantly struggled with it. I applied to college undecided, chose my major like because I had to. Otherwise there'd be like a hold on my like registration or something.
good old William Mary.
Yeah. And like even then I was like, oh, like what should I choose? And I was like, I'll just choose psychology because it's broad and like I can just do anything with it after graduation. Um and so yeah, I mean like going into college I told people like I want to do music therapy. Um but even then I feel like it was still something just to tell people,
Sure.
just to
Yep.
give people an answer. And always like a part of me I was constantly thinking about that, but I just never had like that. I never had the like, yeah, this is what I really want to do.
Right, right.
Um and then oh yeah, so I graduated. I went to Korea actually, lived there for a little under a year. My parents moved back to Korea when I was a senior in college. So that's kind of why I moved back just to like be with them because it's only like me and my brother and my parents, I could tell like they I mean they've always really cared about us and they've always had like a big heart for us as like most parents do. But yeah, so I went and honestly, a big incentive for me was I didn't want to go to grad school. So going
Wow.
to Korea, I was like, I don't need to go to grad school because I think I'd be able to like find a job and, be okay not going to grad school. So yeah, to be honest, that was a great incentive. But yeah, I went and then stuff happened. I decided to come back. Even coming back, I was not thinking about grad school. I was just thinking, oh, like I'll live in Nova, I'll find a job there. There are plenty of opportunities there. But like I came back March 2020 So that was when everything shut down.
Right. Yep.
No one was hiring. No one was doing anything. And I was like, ooh, well, I gotta like go like
Do
live.
something.
Yeah. Like pay rent, pay bills somehow. So I ended up like getting a retail job. Cause like that was the only thing that was like really open, I guess, at that point in time. And during that time, I was still like, okay, like I wasn't really like fretting. I was just like, okay, like we'll just have to see what's up. Like, all right, like
what's gonna happen next?
Yeah, what's gonna happen? And so still again, high prayer topic of like, God, what do you want me to do? Like how do you want to use me in my life? And like how do you want me to be like affecting people? Like how do you want me to be living in a way that like reflects Jesus in what I do kind of thing? And I don't know. I just like the more I thought about it and the more I prayed about it, I was like, oh, I think this is like the counseling stuff. Like this is what I really want to do. And so shortly after I looked into grad schools and like applied and
now you're in the process.
Yeah, made it and here I am.
Yeah. Is the schooling pretty much what you expected it to be?
Yes and no. Like the initial was actually not what I expected it to be, but now that I'm in it and stuff, it is kind of what I expected. Um, but yeah, I feel like it's a lot of self-reflection and it's a lot of like I feel like I need to take care of my stuff first or like my stuff as well in the process of like helping others. And so sometimes it is very like heavy and it's more than academics. So like a part like in those times it is kind of like harder in the sense that it's like it's not like tests or exams or essays or whatever that I have to worry about. It's about like my emotions and like my like underlying beliefs or like morals or something that, I have to deal with or my own happenings, incidents, traumas and things like that. So, yeah.
Is it kind of like you don't feel like you're apt to help people until you can figure out yourself? Or is it more like you just need to finish going through those things before you think you're at a good spot to be able to start doing that?
I think it's just more of like, I think that's what therapists should do. And I think that's what the school is trying to help us do so that we can do it now rather than when we are licensed and in our career. And like a big thing that my school like emphasizes is like trying our hardest not like to prevent burnout, So like we're trying to be equipped with what we can to not go through that so that we can be consistent and that we can be the most like helpful and be in the most like stable place when we are out of school and things like that. So yeah, very reflective. A lot of us always are like, okay, enough with these reflections. Like,
teach us.
Yeah, yeah.
What specifically are you trying to pursue in your counseling?
Yeah, so right now I'm in my internship process still, and I'm still trying to be very open. I am on the like child and adolescent track because with that I can do both children, adolescents, and adults. So in my head I was like, why not? Like I just kind of want to be the most broad I can be. But like so in my internship, I'm just trying to experience a lot of things before like deciding what I want to like specialize in, which I feel like I've noticed that's a tendency I have of like, I don't know, I guess you can call it indecisiveness, but also like openness.
Right.
Yeah. So I just want to experience a lot before I like hone in on something. But I've been a lot interested in like art therapy and play therapy with children and adolescents or just in general. Um, because in college I actually minored in art. Yeah, initially I wanted to do music therapy. Now I'm still open to it, but I am also interested in like art therapy and play therapy now.
Can you briefly go over just a couple of types of therapy?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of the types of therapy, I guess it comes from different like theories. And so if we're talking about play therapy, I think that's like a big umbrella. And under play therapy is like art therapy, like sand tray. There's like, I don't know, like puppet therapy and like music therapy. I guess it could fall under play therapy, but I'm not really so too sure about the music therapy part. But yeah, in that aspect, that's like the umbrella that those topics are under. But then regarding theories, so like my program is more like psychodynamic oriented, which is more like holistic and more like the typical, I guess, like in quotes, typical like talk therapy and like the how do you feel kind of thing, but more evolved from that because the whole how do you feel, is very like, yes, yeah. Um, but then something on the rise right now is like CBT, which is like cognitive behavioral therapy, which a lot of insurances prefer because that is kind of more it can be more like session based. So a lot of insurances will be like, oh, maybe like 10 sessions of cognitive CBT, like we'll cover that. And that's like kind of doable in the sense like versus psychodynamic, which like we really are digging deep and like we're really trying to find the root cause. And not, I mean, this might be like a my own bias because I kind of prefer that kind of theory and like alignment, but yeah. And there's like solution oriented um and just different like Gestalt, like Adlerian, all these like theorists like names that go into those like types of therapy. And honestly, sometimes I do think the like for example, CBT, like you do need some behavioral fixes to help like your thoughts, like the cognition, like that part of it. So I think it's just like um it's all different fit for different people and even for different therapists because there are therapists who really can't like they can't bring themselves to do a certain type of therapy and they just know they're not good at it and that's when they would like refer to other people and things like that and that were like that would be the most like ethical decision instead of
Right.
like trying to
Taking their
just
money.
keep them. Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, I don't know if that really answered that question,
No, I
but
think it's
yeah.
great. Yeah. Is there a difference between counseling and therapy, or are they one and the same?
you know i I thought about this question and we learned this was like one of the first things that we touched upon in grad school because I remember I was like, "Oh yeah, I kind of want to know too" because they had like difference of like counseling, a counselor versus a therapist versus a psychologist versus a psychiatrist or a social worker and things like that. And at that time I was like, "Oh yeah, like this makes sense." And I remembered, I retained it, but at this point I'm like
They're
it like
blended
slips
together.
my
Right.
mind.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Yeah. However, like, I just think for me, how I differentiate is just counselor can be very um broad broad and kind of to anything. So I think of counselor like you could be a guidance counselor, a school counselor, or a camp counselor, or that counseling can kind of go anywhere in a good way, like it
Yeah,
can be
yeah,
used in
it's
a
just
broad
more
term.
broad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I just feel like therapists kind of use are people that use like interventions and treatment plans and things like that to kind of help that process in a goal oriented way. But all in all, I think like counselor versus therapist in terms of what I do in my field is like pretty
Pretty.
interchangeable. Yeah.
Gotcha. So if someone were to want to start looking for their first therapist or counselor, what are things that they should look out for? Or is it just something that they should just jump into the first person that they think they might get along with?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. But I think this goes with any like appointment kind of oriented thing of like look to multiple places. Something to look for, I guess, is like the initial contact of like how they're responding. What is their website updated? Like who is taking care of these like appointment scheduling? Is it like a front desk person? Is it the actual therapist or counselor? Like because we as counselors learn like the intake starts there. When people are coming for help and like the response time is like, oh, they got back to me like 5 days later. Like in those 5 days, like that person really wanting to seek that help, their mind can change or like something can happen, you know? So it's kind of like the initial contact, I think, is very important, even for clients to consider. Something else to look for is there are many different styles out there. So looking into them would be helpful in the sense of like, if you don't know what something is, just quick like Google search, look into it,
See if you agree with it.
see if that person or like that person and that style is something that you would want. Because if I'm like, yeah, I want to talk about my feelings and I really want to get into the depth of things, and I go to someone who is like, yeah, so let's figure out like a solution right away of like how we can like fix something. It's like there's going to be that tension there. So I think those couple of things would be good things for people to look for beforehand.
So I personally go see a counselor, but I remember the kind of introductory period it took a long time for me to kind of just talk about myself even, right? So with that taking, maybe 4 weeks or so, or 4 sessions, do you think it'd be wise for people to just try to continue with that? And then maybe after a prolonged period of time, they can choose to switch? Or do you think if they can already tell that it's kind of iffy, just move on?
So something that happens a lot in school is like we'll ask questions and a lot of times the professors will answer with it depends. And I feel like that is what happens a lot in this field of like, it depends because there are some people who will come in during intake and you won't really have to ask much and they will just pour out. Like they'll just be like, yeah, like this is me and this is what happened and like this and that. But then there are some people who don't say much. Like you look at their intake questionnaire and it's very like, no, yes, I don't know. Or like don't answer. Like they didn't answer or something. Um and there are people um who come in for the intake and then have a few sessions and they choose like, let's just not, because like client wants like a faster rapport building kind of timeline, which is fine. I think for me personally as a counselor, I wouldn't take that personally. I do know sometimes as like early counselors that can be kind of like a hit to the
ego.
like yeah of like, oh my gosh, am I doing this right? Yeah, like am I good enough? But I just think like for me, I just try to have that like underlying, like, it's okay. Like not everyone's for me. Like I'm not for everyone. And I just want that person to have the best fit. So if they don't think I'm their best fit, I would much rather them
get the help.
Get it. Yeah. Get it. Like end session with me quickly so they can get help elsewhere rather than like sitting through with me thinking like, man, this is so painful. Like
maybe thinking that therapy doesn't work even.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so for me, I would much rather have them move on. However, if the tendency for that person is to just jump from person to person,
like maybe self-evaluate, including in that. Yeah. That makes sense.
Which like sometimes it might be hard for them to see that. And maybe that looking at their records, that could be something I could help with and kind of try and hold them longer because I'm noticing that pattern. But yeah.
So how would you encourage people who are seeking mental health but struggle to push themselves to take action? I know there's resources like Psychology Today, right? That it lists all the psychologists in the area. But yeah, do you know if any steps that you could think of personally? Honestly, I feel like that's a lot of people who are like, oh, I probably should do this, but for different reasons, like they don't know their insurance or whatever. They just kind of put down the back burner.
My initial reaction to that is like, why is it in the back burner? Why is that person putting it off? Is it truly because they are busy, or is it because they think they're ready, but they're not quite ready, to get into that? Is it their fear of still being judged by their therapist? Is it their fear of judgment from other people, of like the stigma that it can possibly carry in their life, like, and who they're surrounded by? Is it something to do with like their behavior of like, for example, if this person is a really big procrastinator, or if this person is a really anxious person, it's like even that in and of itself, that first step of seeking is like harder. So I guess that would be my initial question of like, why is it kind of harder for you to reach out and kind of do your thing and seek that? But in terms of suggestions, honestly, I don't know, because like I'm getting a lot of questions regarding like the client perspective. So I'm like, ooh, like these are really good questions. Like, I don't know, you know, but I'm trying my best. But
no, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness in you thinking about the answers.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like because if that client finds that underlying reason, it might be a little bit easier to assess, like maybe it now isn't the right time and I can't afford to just wait because I'm not ready to get into that yet. Or like I just need more healing on my own before I like can reach out to someone. Or not healing, but just like thought, sitting with it on my own. Or just, I don't know, this is a lot of like person-centered me coming out, which means like I'm very, or like, I find myself leaning a lot towards like, what are you most comfortable with? And like, what are you wanting to do?
Going along with that, who do you think could benefit from counseling or therapy?
Oh, everyone. Yeah.
So if someone is totally good with their life and they're totally fine, they know how to manage their issues well, everything is really like positive. Right. Like what could that therapy bring to them?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think for those people, therapy can just bring to them a more like, I don't want it to sound this way, but I think this is a word that comes to mind of more like an educational time. Even though things are positive, like there's always more to learn about oneself, right? And they can always do a lot of self-reflection. And even outside of that, they can learn like coping mechanisms and healthy behaviors that can not only help them, but also they can kind of provide that to people that might benefit from that. And I just feel like even for people who do have a very positive and like overall happy and healthy life and they're content, I think they could still benefit from it, even if it's from a few sessions, just to like reflect. I think like reflection is a big thing, and just to kind of learn more about who they are in that time. So yeah, I think it'd be beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there any common misconceptions you know of or are irritated by when you think about them?
Yeah, actually one comes to mind like straight away of this doesn't irritate me, but this is a common misconception, including like the one I had for myself and going into this field. When I thought of counseling, it was just like they would give advice and like they would be able to like really like solve my problems or something like that, right? I went to school, like I got into school started, and like one of the first things that happened was like, yeah, we're not advice givers. And I was like, what? Like,
wait a minute, I'm in the wrong school.
Yeah. I was like, what? And so they were like, if you're here thinking that you're going to be like telling people what to do, that's not it. And I was like, oh, I mean, that's low-key kind of what I thought I would be doing. Not in a like bossing people around kind of way, but just like, oh, like, what should I do? And I'm like, kind of like, oh, maybe you could do this, like, but yeah, something I've learned and that I really resonate with now is that we're there to help guide that person to be in a place where they feel comfortable doing what they have decided and kind of helping the client figure out how to do things.
Be self-sustaining.
Yeah.
To be more self-sustaining. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like the ultimate goal is for them to not come and see me anymore.
Sure.
Right?
To be healed.
Yeah.
It's just sick. Yeah.
And so after that I was like, oh, like
oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like
I am in the right school.
And so yeah. And so even now, like there are clients who are like, what should I do? Or like, should I do this? Or like, should I get on medication? And I'm like, like that's really not my place, because I'm not here to tell you like what to do. I'm just here to help you figure it out for yourself, like help you figure out you. But something that I have like conflicting feelings, because I'm a believer of God who is like, I want to live for God. I want to live to glorify God. Right. And so for me to constantly be telling people like, it's all about you, sometimes I do feel conflicted.
Yeah, that makes sense. So being a Christian in the workplace, that conflict must come up a little bit. So how do you maintain your, Christian mindset while also being a counselor to these people who probably aren't Christian in a lot of cases?
I'm someone who thinks that like as Christians, we can bring our faith into our workplace in whatever we do. So yeah, even in like a big like corporate world or like counseling or being a teacher or being the firefighter that I mentioned earlier, like whatever it is, I think that we have an outlet and a way to bring that into our life and like our occupation. But something I thought of for myself that I wanted to do was like I wanted to do something that was like more in the category of like serving, I guess. And like I think that's part of why I wanted to be a teacher, to kind of like help
The
the
common
children
good,
and
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
yeah, like that. And so going into counseling, I thought like if my client were to ever ask me like, hey, like, so how do you do it? How are you like here listening to all of our problems and like living in quotes like a sane life or like an okay life? And like, I thought like that would be my time and opportunities to self disclose. Like, it's because like my God is what I believe in. But then also something I learned very early on in school was just like, you should really self disclose with like caution and like you shouldn't be like self disclosing your
Personal.
like personal beliefs, I guess, in the sense of like enforcing it, which like I never thought to enforce my religious beliefs in that way. But I think the way I deal with it is to be the most accepting and open to things that are contrary to our beliefs.
Hmm.
So a lot of things that are on the rise is like LGBTQ plus community, like seeking counseling, a lot of adolescents having like, gender identity crises or like crisis or like, things like that are a little bit more controversial in like the Christian world of like the topic and things like that. But instead of, saying like, oh, I'd rather not see those people and I'd rather not do things like that. Like, I just don't think that is a true godly way to
Christian mindset.
think. Yeah,
Hmm.
Christian
Hmm.
mindset. And in those times, I just think I need to do more research on it. Or if someone who had a different religion than I did, really studying upon that and studying what they do believe in so that I can be more informed in a way to help them in the best way that I can, knowing what I believe in, kind of thing. And so I just try hard, like, not to be exclusive in that
Right,
sense.
right. To minister, to serve everyone equally, in which would glorify God as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely. You're seeing patients now, so you probably listen to a lot of people's problems and worries and concerns in this world. How do you keep that from weighing you down personally, to hear all those negative parts of the world and people's lives?
Yeah, so it's really funny because a lot of my clients right now are predominantly actually like in their early to mid 20s, which is like my age group. And so a lot of their things that they're going through, sometimes I also am like, yeah, same. Like so they're like, oh yeah, like life transitions and like doing this and that and like I don't know what to do and or this is what I'm going through and yeah, so sometimes I'm like, yeah, girl, like same or like um things like that, but I guess for the most part I am able to keep it like work related, like they are the clients, like this is not about me, like or like this is not something that I need to take like personally and like think about personally. I'll just try to keep it here like in this space. And normally I am like okay at that. But yes, there are times where after a session I'm just kind of like, oh man, like my day could be done right now and I'd be fine because like that was kind of a little bit heavier. But how I handle that, you see, this is why like a lot of self-reflection, like the school makes us do and trying to like figure out ourselves was kind of beneficial because I have a name for it. So I'm like, oh, this is just me going through the transference, countertransference. So this is just me going through countertransference. Like I'll just reflect on why that is and like what that is and like once I get the answer to that, it kind of helps that. I guess like that's how I deal with it. And I just I give myself some grace of like, it's okay if I feel a little bit down, like it'll be fine later. And like I do a lot of I honestly do think about like my faith life a lot in this profession. And so I think I find myself a lot of times like kind of reflecting on it in that sense.
In a very real sense, do you ever feel like your faith waning, honestly, from hearing all these the pain and hurt in this world?
Honestly, I don't think so. I'm gonna say no to that because I guess I'm in this quote unquote like advantage of knowing that the world isn't perfect. Like knowing the world isn't supposed to be a place where I'm supposed to be happy all the time and that things are going to be perfect all the time and that yeah. So I think because I'm in that spot, I can tell myself like here in this world like this is a part of it, like this is normal. I may not like it. This might also get me sad and this might also get me weighed down, but like in the end this isn't everything. So I guess I just pray that like someday, somehow, one day, my clients will be able to know that as well.
Wow, that's very deep. Entering this final phase, I wanted to ask you to kind of bring it all back to CCPC and your Christianity and your Christian life. I was wondering, Hwejean, if you had any person in particular in your life or event that really helped shape you and further your walk with Christ.
I say my mom because now that I'm older, I can tell that she also had her like ups and downs in her walk of faith just because of hard times. Like, I don't think I ever blame God for any of my hardships. And I think I get that from my mom. So like, I don't think I've ever seen her like blame God. I guess she can question of like, God, like, please let me understand why this is happening. But it was never like a pointing finger kind of thing at God. And I think she's had a lot of growth, like even from when I was younger to now. And it's so like beautiful for me to see. And I think that's something I strive for is like that constant growth. Like it doesn't have to be like always upward, but if you like span out and you look at the ups and downs, like it's just still a constant upward like trajectory. Right. Yeah. And I just think that defines her faith life, which I really respect a lot and which is something that I am hoping is happening in my life right now too. And I guess like I can really feel her prayers in my life. So like even if I may be in my downs, like I can really feel like a lot of her prayers like for me in my life as I'm living and even in hindsight, like when I look back.
Well, thanks for sharing. That was a shout out to Mrs. Jung. Thanks for your time, Hwejean. Yeah, you did a great job today. And to audience, thanks for listening and catch us next time.
Thank you.